of himself more highly than he ought to think, but to think soberly according to God hath dealt to every man the measure of faith. And so this is my translation. This is J. Vernon McGee and not me. I'm reading through the Bible by J. Vernon McGee. This is volume 4. It's Matthew through Romans. I have 3 sets of J. Vernon McGee's commentaries. One my Uncle Amos gave me when I was 18 and surrendered to preach. Then Chad gave me another set that was his personally, and this was Don Reese's, Aunt Donna's husband. She gave it to Chad, but this is the only volume 4 I've got. And so I thank Chad, Don Reese, and J. Vernon McGee for preaching through the Bible series. And so this is J. Vernon McGee's translation, the Magius Abominus is what I think he calls it. For I am saying through the grace given to me, to everyone among you, not to be thinking of himself more highly than that which is necessary to think, but to think wisely of oneself, even as God has divided a measure of faith to each one. My translation may have lost something of that pungent statement. Not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think. I imagine that when Paul wrote this, there was a whimsical smile on his face because there are a great many Christians who are ambitious, who feel that they must have positions of prominence. And I have found out in Christian work that a great many folk in the church want to hold an office. If you want to be a successful pastor today and get a bunch of folk working like termites, you create a great many offices, committees, boards, and have presidents, chairmen, and heads of organizations. You will get a lot of people working who would never work on any other basis. Why? Because they think more highly of themselves than they ought to think. What we need to do, as Paul says here, is to think soberly. He says that we ought not try to advance ourselves in Christian circles. There is the ever-present danger of the believer overestimating his ability and his character and his gifts. We need to have a correct estimate of ourselves in relationship to other members in the church. When I became a pastor of certain churches, I was invited to serve on a board as a board member of certain organizations. Finally, I was serving on about a dozen or 15 boards, and I was really a board member, B-O-R-E-D. That's J. Vernon McGee and not me. I was bored for the simple reason that I don't have gifts for that sort of thing. To begin with, I don't have the patience to sit and listen to pages of minutes that take hours to read. And the second thing is that I just don't like to sit in a board meeting and listen to a group of incompetent men discuss spiritual matters. It took me a long time to find out I don't have the kind of gift that would make me helpful in such situations. And I'm killing myself doing the board meetings. The Christian life became a round of being bored. Finally, one day, I came to myself like the prodigal son, and I sat down and wrote 12 or more letters of resignation. That was one of the happiest days of my life. And today, I am not on anybody's board. I have several friends who say to me, "Oh, won't you be on my board?" I say, "No, I wouldn't help you. I have no gift for it. I'm for you. I'll even pray for you. But I cannot be on your board." My friend, we are not to think of ourselves more highly than we ought to think. We need to recognize our abilities and do the things God wants us to do. It is a joy to get into the slot where God wants you